Hello and welcome to another episode of the FemiNinja Project. And thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And I have a fantastic guest with me today. He is a very special person with a very special message that he wants to share with us. His name is Collin Hughes. He is a cowboy, retired airline pilot, voice actor, public speaker, host of the Miracles of Tragedy podcast, and founder of Choose Life, Not Death, which is dedicated to suicide prevention, especially among teenagers. He is also a spokesperson for the Malinois Foundation, which trains and donates service dogs for veterans, women abuse survivors, first responders, and children with special needs. Collin, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm really excited to have you on the show. And just so our audience is aware, boy, Collin really is a cowboy because he tells stories just like a real cowboy. So I have been greatly entertained in the pre-show. So I'm sorry I didn't record that for you. So Collin, please, I just want you to share your story with the audience. Like I told you before, I can't even say it. I just have to sit here and try and control myself. So go ahead and tell us your story. And just want to give another little warning for the audience. This is a difficult subject, but it's a very important one to hear, to share, and raise awareness for suicide prevention, especially among teenagers. Take it away, Collin.
Well, I kind of like to word it that, as a child, I had three dreams: be a cowboy, be a pilot, be an actor. I've always gone after my dreams and said, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to do it. And I rode bulls for 18 years. And a lot of that in the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association, competing against some of the legends in the sport of rodeo. I'm talking about, if you've ever heard of the movie 8 Seconds about Lane Frost. Lane was a friend of mine. At Cheyenne, you ride 2 times. There's right around 300 bull riders usually entered in this rodeo back then anyway. And each bull rider would ride twice. We call it long go rounds. And then the top 15 from those went into the championship go round on the final day. Lane and I had our first 2 bulls the same days that year at Cheyenne. He made the short go round. I didn't. I was going to stick around and watch it. And I thought, you know what? I'm not in it. It just make me angry with myself. So I went home, and then I got the news that afternoon while I was at a family's house that I knew in Kansas on my way back to Texas when I got the news about Lane. The last thing he ever said to me is he called me an old fart. that's a special memory for me to have of him. And then after I stopped riding bulls, I started to announce rodeos, which made me discover that I love the microphone, and the microphone loves me. I love public speaking. Most people don't like public speaking, but you put a microphone in front of me and thousands of people in an auditorium, I was like, yeah, we're going to have some fun. And I got my private pilot license in 1980 because I thought, here's a good way to go to rodeos. Because I traveled with a guy for a little while who had his own airplane. I thought, this is great. And then I didn't use it much, really. And, went on with my life. And after I stopped announcing rodeos, I thought, you know what? I got to find something else to do. And this road is getting tiring, driving all night. Put my sound system up, take it down, announce it, blah, 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 blah. Just wear it on me. And so I thought, I've got my private pilot certificate with some decent hours on it. So I went ahead and started getting all my ratings. And then after instructing for a little while, I found a job flying a jet on a charter certificate. And then a little while later, I wound up going to the airline. So there's dream number 2 come true.
Wow.
And retired airline captain now. Official retirement date was last year, April 27th. The FAA says age 65, that's it. You can fly charter, you can fly anything else, but you cannot fly for the airlines at age 65.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Well, I was I was getting wore out.
Oh, maybe
Yeah.
that's why they do it. That all that travel would kind of wear you down.
Yeah. But then when COVID hit, I was on the ground the last couple of years of my airline career.
Mm-hmm.
Is when I got home from my last flight that I flew for the airlines
Mm-hmm.
was, I think it was like January 25th, something like that. I was on an overnight in Guadalajara, Mexico, and worked the flight in early in the morning into Houston, Texas, where I was based, and I live in Las Vegas. Caught a
Mm-hmm.
ride home to Vegas, and I was at home before noon, which, all right, cool. But next day, and I didn't drink the water. I got hit by Montezuma's revenge so bad. Days, and I don't know how many days it went on. I finally went to the emergency room, and during a scan, the doctors found a tumor on my left kidney. And I had surgery on it February 20th of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And the tumor was removed, but I was still under observation, and then also some
Mm-hmm.
medications, which meant I no longer had an FAA medical. So I was on
Mm-hmm.
the ground until my retirement time last year. I remember that date of February 20th, 2020, because I was the 5th anniversary of my oldest daughter's death to cancer.
Oh.
Yeah. So, but I bring all this up because, I've always been somebody who's gone after what I want.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
June 10th of last year, I found something that I didn't know how to get past.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the suicide of my 15-year-old granddaughter.
Mm.
And my whole adult life, after I started announcing rodeos and realized how much I enjoyed public speaking, I've always tried to find a topic that I could speak on with passion. And I just,
Mm-hmm.
this now, I just go on. What am I supposed to speak on? I know it's supposed to be something for much greater than announcing rodeos or some of the stand-up comedy I did. There's a reason for this, because when I was a child, when I was about 8 years old, I almost drowned. Somebody had to pull me out of this whirlpool I was caught up in at this lake in Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
And I was about to go down for the count, and this man pulled me out of the water. As a
Wow.
young adult, when I was traveling to rodeos, I caught a ride with the stock contractor who was, had the stock for this next rodeo I was going to. And we'd stopped, and I was about to cross the road. I was standing in front of the truck, and my view was obstructed from oncoming traffic. And just as I stepped forward, somebody yelled out my nickname, "Goose, get back!" And as I looked back to them, I took just a step back. At that time, a car
Oh my goodness.
I could feel the wind
Oh.
off of it. So I I've always wondered, my life has been spared, and there's been a couple other times in my life that my life has been spared. It's got to be for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And this gift of public speaking
Mm-hmm.
has got to be why, but what am I supposed to do with it?
Mm-hmm.
When I got the call, it was my one of my other daughters' caller ID. So I pick it up, expecting to hear her. And it was her husband, my granddaughter's stepfather.
Mm.
And I knew right then that something was wrong, but I didn't know what. And then when he told me, I'm yelling and screaming and wailing like I've never had in my entire life. And my wife is a social worker. She's working our house that day.
Mm-hmm.
And since she was a voice actor, there's one character that I voice is very loud, booming voice like this. And so she just thought I was in my sound booth
Oh.
voicing something. And then she finally came out. But within seconds after being told of my granddaughter's death, I just heard in my head says, "This is what you've been saved for. This is your message."
Mm.
And unfortunately, I'm able to speak on this topic with passion.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, the whole story. I did see a video of Evangelina
uh-huh.
dancing in like well, like a Hawaiian skirt, almost a grass skirt.
Yeah, uh-huh.
And she was just laughing.
Oh,
She was
she's
having
hilarious.
such a
She was
great time.
fantastic.
Was that your bare feet in the video that I saw, or was that her stepdad's?
That was we took her on vacation to Hawaii when she was 12 years old.
Mhm.
And that day we had gone to the Polynesian Cultural Center. Have you ever heard of it?
I've heard of it, but I haven't. I've
Uh,
been to Hawaii once, but I never went
yeah.
there.
It's owned by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And what it is, it's a mock-up of all the different Polynesian island nations.
Um,
And different areas has a mock-up village from each of these nations: Tahiti, New Zealand, Hawaii, Tonga, and so forth.
mhm.
And at the end of the day, there's also a luau, and that's where we'd been that day.
Okay. Mhm.
And there's some pictures I have that are just fantastic. We were at
Mhm.
one of the ones, I can't remember which one it was on the tour, and I actually paid for us to have a private tour guide, which, yeah, you pay the lower price, you go in, you can walk around on your own.
Mhm.
You pay another price, and then you join a group of people that has a guide, with however,
Right.
or you can pay the top price and you have your own personal guide, and that's what we did.
Mm.
And so one of these villages, they have show dances from the
Mhm.
villages, the food that they eat, this
Mhm.
kind of stuff. But when they do the shows for each village, somebody will normally come down and take people out of the audience and drag them up there.
Mhm.
And Lena, that's what I called her. Lena was actually chosen, pulled up on stage at one of these times, and she just she had this terrified look on her face. She was not happy one bit, not at all. And then later that day at the luau, they asked for anybody who wanted to come up, and she was, "Grandpa, can I go up?"
Well,
And
she
she
got
went
over
up
her
there,
stage
and
fright,
oh
didn't she?
yeah, she did, and she was just beaming and having fun, and it was amazing to see that transformation throughout the day. It was just
Oh.
amazing. The cultural center too is there's an Elvis Presley movie in Hawaii,
Oh, yeah,
the,
yeah.
the one where it shows him on a raft and stuff coming in.
Mhm.
That was filmed at the Polynesian Cultural Center. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah,
Well, in the video when she's dancing, it's so funny because you can see she's just having a great time, and you
yeah.
can see. So for the listeners, if you go to Colin's website and look at the video, you can see Colin's bare feet in the corner of the video. Quite amusing. And then it must have been your wife's voice saying, "I think she
Yeah,
learned something today."
yeah. That was such a wonderful moment. That was probably one of the best times of that vacation. Is
Mhm.
we had a suite, you know, that 2 rooms so that she could have her own sleeping area and privacy, and then my wife and I could have ours.
Mhm.
And at the end of each day, we'd all join in the main suite,
Mhm.
just come running and dive into the bed and just lay there like she was and just talking.
Mhm. Of
And that
course.
was, yeah, that was such an amazing time to.
Well, tell us a little bit more about Lena because, I was reading on your website all of the activities that she was involved in. I mean, this was a very intelligent young lady, and she was into everything aquatics. And I can't even remember. I should have written them all down, but I didn't want to,
Track.
have writer's cramp. But so tell us a little bit more about her. She was active in everything.
Yeah, oh, she was just amazing. And instead of going there right now, there's something else about it that talks to her character, the person that she was,
Okay.
and how my relationship blossomed with her so much.
Mhm.
I had 5 daughters. My oldest daughter was a product of a youthful indiscretion.
Okay.
I didn't meet her until she was 15, and she was angry for a long time. In 2011, it was on again, off again, on again, off again. 2011, she reached out after she was diagnosed with cancer, and that, started bringing us closer together and closer together. And she died January 29th of 2015. Last thing she ever said is to tell me that she loved me.
Oh.
I watched her take her last breath. A tragedy, like I say, the miracles of forgiveness. It comes from these tragedies that I'm getting to. So that's tragedy number one. But the miracle was having another granddaughter come into my life, who's now she was 12 at the time of her mother's passing. She's now a junior in college and doing wonderful. I get these quirky phone calls from her when she's driving somewhere, and it's so a tragedy, but yet a miracle.
So let me just clarify that. So then that was her mother who passed away. Your oldest daughter was her mom, Lena's mom?
No,
Oh, okay.
no. Different granddaughter.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah, different granddaughter. And then the other 4 daughters were from my first marriage. And Lena's mother was the second oldest of this sibling group.
Okay.
I was not a good person back then. I was following my father's footsteps, drinking, womanizing, cheating on my wife. Of course, none of it was my fault. You did this, I did it. Just not good of me, which led to a divorce. Totally my fault. She remarried somebody who was retired military. And they approached me to see if I would allow him to adopt them because of his retirement benefits. They could have medical insurance and whatever else comes with that. I thought that's more I could afford to pay child support at the time. So I thought, okay. But it wasn't until after I signed those documents that I realized I have no right to see these children anymore. Of course, they grew up feeling abandoned by me, and rightfully so. So I, for years, didn't have any contact with them. In 2004, the second of the oldest girls found me through Facebook. We got together and met. We were, started to build a relationship. Then through family pressure and stuff, she decided, to end it. And then a little while later, it was on again. And then that ended. And then after meeting my wife now 17 years, she reached back out to me, and my wife is a social worker. And to her, the most important thing in life is relationships. And my daughter reached out to me again. She says, well, you're going to answer her, right? No. Well, you have to. I said, no. You know what happened before. And so she pushed and she pushed and she pushed. Relationships are so important. You can't let this go. You cannot let this go. I said, okay. Finally, after I don't know how much, I finally I'll do this just to show you that I'm right. And I don't know how long it was, but yeah, it ended again. My granddaughter at the time was 2.5 years old, and she was expecting my grandson at the time. And it all ended. And fast forward several years, 2017, I'm flying for the airlines. And this, of course, after my oldest daughter had died. I'm flying for the airlines and live in Vegas. I was based in Houston, Texas. I'm home on time off, and my wife just out of the blue asked me, says, what are you going to do if she ever contacts you again? And I says, well, it's just too emotional. I don't think I can do that again. And she just, oh, I understand. Oh, really? And it was the next day, I believe, that I was saying my morning prayers. And it's just like you hear in my voice now. I hear this voice that says, pray for your children.
Mm.
I was, my children, I don't have children. They want nothing to do with you. What do you mean, pray for my children? No.
Mm.
It was, pray for your children. And this conversation went back and forth. You know, people, what's wrong with him? If they ever saw me, and finally says, okay, I'll do it. And I did.
Mm.
And then after then, yeah, I had to go down to the Las Vegas airport to catch a ride to Houston,
Mm.
go to work. I worked overnight from Houston to Detroit, overnighted there, came back. Next day when I'm getting off from the first flight of the day that I had out of, I don't know how many I was working that day, but I'm walking up the jet bridge and my phone rings. It's a number I don't recognize. It's my daughter. And her and her husband by this time were divorced.
Mm-hmm.
Her husband was living with my grandson, who I have never met, and he was 7 years old at the time. They were living in Florida,
Mm-hmm.
and my daughter was living with my granddaughter in the Northeast. The children's father had just been killed in an automobile accident.
Oh.
My grandson was in the hospital in a coma, his front split wide open with his internal organs exposed, several broken
Oh.
bones. They didn't know if he was going to make it or not. Her mother wasn't able to come down. Her sisters weren't able to come down. She didn't have anybody who could come down to be there with her. And she just says that she needed somebody there for support.
Wow.
And I'm on the next flight. I mean, without hesitation, I just told her I'm on the next flight. You know, as a pilot, you know, I can, you know, get standby and sit in the cabin, or if there's nothing in the cabin, I can actually, you know, get in the jump seat up
Right.
on the flight deck with the crew. But between Houston and Fort Lauderdale, the jump seats usually full. So I just bought a ticket and got there. And the first time I saw my grandson was him lying in that hospital bed in a coma. And every time I saw my granddaughter during those days I was down there for the first time, I just expected her to say, Grandpa, where you been? How's come we haven't seen you all these years? But not once did she say anything like that.
And
She,
how old was she at the time?
ah, 7 to about 9 or 10.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And is just, you know, just like we'd never been away from each other. She just instantly accepted me and loved me because that's what she was like. And so tragedy number 2 brought that granddaughter back into my life, brought my daughter back into my life, and brought my grandson back into my life, who's now doing wonderful, by the way. And that's what she was. That's what she was like on the trip to Hawaii. Some things I remember about it was just not once did this child ask us for anything, except for to take her to a store where she can purchase her own swimsuit. Of course, Grandpa found the most expensive one in the store and bought it himself.
Of course.
And then I saw an ad for an attraction to swim with the dolphins. And I asked her if she wanted to do that. She says, "Oh, Grandpa, that costs too much." I said, "Well, don't pay attention to that. Would you like to?" I says, "Oh, Grandpa, I don't want you to do that." I says, "Well, honey, look at it this way. If it were free, would you want to do it?" She says, "Yes." I says, "Okay, we're doing it then." Of course, I asked her mother first if it was okay.
Right.
And she had a blast. I've got a picture that I put up on my Facebook page of her with the dolphin, where the dolphin's poked up out of the water, and she's right here. His head's here, her head's here, and she's just smiling from ear to ear. And I got a comment on that picture from a friend of mine, 8-time world champion bull rider, Donnie Gay. And he's one of the biggest legends in the sport of professional bull riding. And Donnie has never, ever, ever met any of my family. And he made this comment. He says, I'd know that smile anywhere.
Oh,
I know. I cried. I actually texted him, says, Donnie, you don't know what that meant to me.
oh,
Yeah, that meant
so
so
sweet.
much. Yeah. And then when we're going home, we're going through the airport at Honolulu, and she had this little bag, and I've got my roller bag behind me. And she had this small carry-on that strapped over her shoulder. And I went to put it on my bag to just carry it. She says, oh, Grandpa, I can carry that. I says, I know. It's okay, honey. I got it. Just lay it there. I don't even know it's there. She says, oh, let me carry that. I said, okay, whatever you want to do, sweetie. And she carried it. When we got home from that vacation, my first day at work after I got back into Houston, I'm walking through one of the terminals in Houston. There's a family right ahead of me that had a daughter probably about the same age as my granddaughter, who's carrying her jacket. She throws it at her father, says, here, you carry it. I'm not going to.
Whoa.
And I said, oh my goodness, thank goodness for my sweet little granddaughter.
Yeah, no kidding.
I could not believe it.
The contrast couldn't be more.
I know. That's, she was just so sweet.
Mhm.
And then last year when I got the call about her, if I didn't mention, my grandson's doing great. By the way, he survived and he's doing wonderful. Went back for the funeral.
Ugh.
And keep in mind that these other 3 daughters of mine, I've had very, very, very little contact with them.
Mhm.
And the funeral home had asked people to send in digital photos
Mhm.
of my granddaughter. And they received, in a small town in Nebraska, they received hundreds and hundreds of pictures. Then the funeral home director handpicked some pictures to make a video with.
Mhm.
Almost 3/4 of those pictures was my granddaughter with my wife and I in Hawaii, in our home, in Universal Studios, and 4 times that I was up visiting them by myself. Was all that much of it was with us. And suddenly
Mhm.
all these other grandchildren know who I am.
Mhm.
At the funeral services, I was sitting behind her mother. You know, she was in the front pew. I was in the second pew. My oldest daughter was sitting right behind me. And her 16-year-old daughter, who looks like she's 12, was sitting right next to her.
Mhm.
And there's a song that really, really got to me. And I'm bent over crying. And all of a sudden, I feel somebody's hand on my back massaging it. And then a tinier hand right next to it.
Oh.
Yeah. And then after the service, I'm standing next to the where she was laying, and a child from my youngest daughter, a little girl, she's, I don't know, I'm guessing 11 maybe at the time, well, last year, so I'm thinking, I don't know for sure. She came walking up to me and says, do you need a hug?
Oh my goodness.
I was like, yeah, I do.
Oh.
At the Then later that day, the interment was the following day at a
Mhm.
small country cemetery that was like a half mile from the farm that I grew up on.
Jeez.
And she was actually buried with my mother, her great grandmother, who had died not long before that, was cremated.
Mhm.
And my daughter had my mother's remains placed in the casket with my granddaughter. 'Cause,
Oh,
yeah, yeah, she loved her great grandma
oh,
so much, but that day, later that day at the hotel room, after the funeral, I got a message that came out to me from my oldest daughter saying that one of her children wanted to meet me.
mm,
And of course, says, "You will not ghost her. You will not leave her. This is a lifetime commitment." And I says, "Yeah, I understand why you're saying this. I got it."
right.
Now she she rubbed it in pretty strong, and I understand completely why. and, and then at the cemetery, I think it was right after the services. My wife was sitting down, and I was standing up during the services. And then after the graveyard services was over, I just, I almost collapsed and had to be helped into a chair. And then after I calmed down, my wife leans over, says, "Honey, do you realize that this is Father's Day and all 4 of your daughters are here?"
Wow.
Yeah. And then my oldest daughter brought this grandchild over that wanted to meet me, was introduced, and she's 16, looks like she's 12, tiny, skinny, little beanpole, lively thing. She just looks at me and says, "Are you a good man now?" And it felt so good to be able to look her in the eye and say, "Yes, I am." And she just, "Good." And she hugged me.
Oh,
And we had text and text and text, and she'll text me
oh,
little cartoons and it's, or I call them my pug pictures. When she wakes up in the morning, she takes a picture of herself with her pug and sends them to me. Excuse me.
oh, gee, what a gift.
And then after that, a grandson that I had met him once, and that's when he was like just a few weeks old, and I held him in my arms. He was 14 now, maybe 15 now, but he walked up to me and he says, "Can I give you a hug?" And I says, "Oh yeah."
Mm,
And I thought of it afterwards. I should have told him, says, "I held you in my arms when you were an infant."
right.
I wished I would have said that to him.
Mhm. Wow.
But
Well, and then now he was holding you.
so tragedy number 3, miracle number 3.
Mhm,
So even in darkest times, there are good things that happen,
mhm.
and thus the miracles of tragedy. And it's just, even when life throws you the worst garbage that you could ever imagine, there's a good cookie to eat in there somewhere.
Mhm.
Sometimes you got to dig for it, but sometimes it just comes right up and smacks you in the faces. Here I am. This is
Mhm.
something good. And fortunately, that's how it was with me. I didn't have to
Mhm.
dig for the morsels, but they were there. Thank goodness.
Mhm.
And
So
now,
is it then at that point, is that when you decided to start your podcast or?
no, I did not. I was trying to figure out a way to start talking about this.
Mhm.
I can't remember who or what. Somebody mentioned how to get on some podcasts and talk to people. So I
Mhm.
just went on it as a guest.
Mhm.
Oh, no, 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 no. It wasn't, it was, I remember now, it was a young lady who had befriended me when she was in college several years ago. In 2007, I grounded my 2008, I grounded myself to go on antidepressants,
Okay.
which at the time the FAA did not allow.
Mm-hmm.
2000, and while I was on the ground, my wife says out of boredom,
Mm-hmm.
I put on a uniform shirt, put a paper bag over my head with holes cut in the eyeballs, and made a video. Says, I am the Prozac pilot. And started a blog, Prozac Pilot.
Okay, so what is it? Was a written blog or it was a
Yeah,
video? Okay.
both. A handful of videos and written blog. And I'm trying to get it all transferred over to a new website that I just created. It's called FAA pilotsmentalhealth.org.
Boy, that's a good one.
Yeah, I haven't started anything with it yet, but that's the next step with that. But
Yeah. I love that name, the Prozac pilot.
yeah, when in
I mean,
2000,
that's exactly what every passenger wants to hear.
yeah,
When, the hi, I'm your pilot, AKA the Prozac pilot.
but in 2011, when the FAA made the announcement that they were going to allow 4 different types of antidepressants for pilots, but there's some strenuous stuff you had to go through.
Right.
I got calls from CNN, from Inside Edition. I've been on CNN, I think 3 times, Inside Edition once, CBS this morning one time. But during all this, I was getting email from people all over the world. And one of them was this young lady who was young, aspiring pilot,
Mm-hmm.
just starting college at Embry-Riddle University.
Mm-hmm.
And she's now an airline pilot. And we befriended each other. I became like a mentor to her. My wife and I went to her graduation when she received her bachelor's degree, and she just received her master's degree from Embry-Riddle just
Wow.
last week, I think. But when she found out about the death of my granddaughter, and I told her that, I know this is what I'm supposed to do now. I'm supposed to be an advocate for suicide prevention. She told me about 2 women who had a podcast that dealt with mental health and pilots and a lot of things generated around flying. And so she reached out to them and had them get in touch with me. And that was the first podcast I went on as a guest.
Mm-hmm.
And after the end of the recording, one of these young ladies told me that I should start my own podcast. And it took, a few more times of being a guest, and people keep saying to start my own podcast. And I was, okay. And so I thought of names. Now that won't work. And then all of a sudden, had these tragedies and these miracles, the miracles of tragedy.
Right.
And so it began.
And what year was that you started the podcast then? Started the
It was
show?
last year.
Okay.
Yeah, because it was last year when my granddaughter died.
Yeah. Wow.
And now I'm working on slideshows for my public speaking engagements that I'm going to be doing.
So are you doing any public speaking now, or is it mostly just through your podcast? Because
Mostly through the podcast, and
Okay.
I'm going to be starting to book some. I've had some interest in doing some public, in having me as a guest at some different locations. And then just last week, I'm so excited to have become a spokesperson for the Malinois Foundation. The word Malinois comes from Belgium, Malinois. It is a breed of dog that is very, extremely loyal. And
out of curiosity, are those is that the breed of dog that they use exclusively, or is it all breeds?
It's Labradors are really good for this. To get into what type of service dog it is, you're seeing people. You ever see the news story about the lady that had the peacock trying to get on a flight?
Yes.
In Newark. Oh yeah, the emotional support animal.
Peacock.
That's emotional. Yeah. So people have had all kinds of things that they brought on airlines as an emotional support animal, and the FAA finally, the airlines kept, how do we stop it? How do we stop it? And the FAA finally said, emotional support animals are not allowed. But Service animals are.
Mm,
And now for people like PTSD or things like that that have, an emotional need for an animal, and the difference
right.
between emotional support and a service dog is the service dogs actually perform a function for
Mm-hmm.
its owner. Like
Mm-hmm.
it'll remind you to take medications.
Mm-hmm.
It calms you when you need, if you need that. If you're having a nightmare, it can wake you up. There's several things that it actually performs functions for the
Mm-hmm.
owners.
Mm-hmm.
And the Malinois Foundation trains these animals and donates them to first responders, veterans, women survivors, and children with special needs. And it's just, or if a person has their own pet,
Mm-hmm.
they'll train that dog for them, and it's
Mm-hmm.
all done through donations. It's just
Wow.
amazing. I've got some stats here. I gotta bring up. Here it
Mm-hmm.
is. And so, just not with the Malinois Foundation where these animals came in from, but anyone who ever has had one of these service dogs,
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing what they do
Mm-hmm.
for their human companions.
Mm-hmm.
82% of all people with emotional support dogs have reported a decrease in suicidal thoughts.
Wow.
One
82%, did you say?
82%.
Wow.
One third of them who have all the ones who have PTSD, one third of them no longer meet any criteria for PTSD after
Wow.
18 months with the dog.
Wow.
And then this one, even higher, is 92% report a reduction in medications after
Wow.
getting the service dog.
Wow.
Yeah, it
See,
just
I mean,
blows my mind.
the statistics are mind-blowing and
Yeah.
mind-boggling, but as a devout dogaholic and a dog lover my entire life, I even did a rescue for 7 years after I finished graduate school. I mean, I don't care what I'm going through, how bad it is. If I've got my dogs, it's just like they make everything better, even if they're, peeing on the carpet or, barking annoyingly, which, they might actually start doing during the podcast. But it's like it just calms my nerves and my spirit. And I love when I see people, especially service dogs out in the public. And I told you I went to a graduate school for physical therapy. I graduated in '96. That was actually my second career, and we had to do all kind of different, different what like programs and stuff, and go out in the community and explore different things that they had to offer. And three of us went down to Colorado Springs. They have canine companions for independence,
Uh-huh.
and they're all like either golden retrievers or yellow labs or black labs or whatever. And they were showing us the film of how they trained the dogs and stuff. It was just such a, I mean, all three of us were real dogaholics. So we were just bawling at the end of it because we all just wanted to, help train these puppies. And when you see them go to their, their new owners and their faces light up, it's just amazing. What a wonderful organization. So I want to make sure that I get that. I will put the website link on the show notes of the Malinois Foundation. So
Okay.
people, the listeners would be able to go to their website. You can donate to the website, contact them if you know of anybody who might need their services.
Yeah, it's the Malinois Foundation.org, and Malinois is MALINOIR. If you look up birds of Malinois, you'll see that they're just that's just the image that the foundation wanted to use is that type of loyalty.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Wow, that is incredible.
Yeah, I stumbled across them. I was thinking of getting a dog and
Hmm.
having somebody train it for this before I even knew about the foundation.
Hmm.
And so I was looking at dogs. I had a friend of mine who was a dog breeder. He's a retired police officer, and now
Hmm.
he a canine officer, and now he has a business where he trains dogs for law enforcement agencies.
Uh-huh.
And he had some dogs that didn't quite fit his criteria, and was just going to give me one, get trained for house and stuff. And then I was trying to find a trainer to do the rest as a service dog. I learned what the difference was by doing that research between an emotional support animal and a service dog.
Right.
And there was a company I found. It's called Dog Training Elite.
Mm.
And they have Dog Training Elite has franchises in several different states.
Mm-hmm.
And one of their specialties is training psychiatric service dogs. And that's what they're called, is psychiatric service dogs.
Wow.
And so I thought, wonder. So I poked around. It cost a few $1,000s to get that training done.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure.
And then all of a sudden I saw a link for the Malinois Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And who are these people? And so I sent them an email to find out more. They are looking for a puppy for me right now. And they're going to completely have it trained as a service dog, because I have some childhood trauma that I still have some PTSD from. And, all the events of, the losses of my life. And
right.
And I thought, and now on my my emails, I've got a signature card I have on there that I have on there. Spokesperson for the Malinois Foundation, and they approve. Says, "Oh yeah, that's cool. You can do that." Yeah, and
I apologize if you can hear the natives are restless upstairs. The dogs are barking, so I'm so sorry about that.
I don't hear them.
Oh, good. They're getting louder. My husband is out of town, and he's usually the one responsible for keeping them quiet. And I just ran them and played with them and just wore them out really good before we logged on. And now they're upstairs laughing at me going, you thought you did a good job, but no. Anyway, Collin, I am so excited about that puppy for you.
I am too.
It is. Have you ever had a dog?
Yeah, not as an adult. I haven't, though.
Really?
Yeah, growing up, I grew up on a farm, and we had dogs all the time. But I've always thought about,
oh, you are going to be so much in love with this dog.
It's going to be interesting. I never thought of something, being that much support for a person.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Once you have a dog, you'll wonder how you ever managed without one.
Yeah.
At one point, when I was doing rescue, we actually had our breed that we rescued were Italian greyhounds. So they're the really little ones, not the racing greyhounds. I mean, it's like somebody took a racing greyhound, put it in a dryer on high heat, forgot about it, and it just shrunk down to like 12 pounds. That's the Italian greyhound. And I just love the breed. They're just absolutely adorable, very annoying. But at one point, we actually had 6 Italian greyhounds and a black lab mix in my house. And we owned all of them because a few of the Italian greyhounds never got adopted. They were rescue dogs. And it was like, well, I'm not going to, get rid of them or euthanize them, a healthy dog. So they got to live out the rest of their lives with us. And yeah, love my dogs. And you're going to love yours too. I want you to let me know when you get the dog. Just send me an email or something, or I'll look for you. I'm following you on Twitter already, Twitter and Facebook.
Yeah, I don't do a lot of posting on there, but which Facebook page? My normal one, or?
It's the one that's on Podmatch, so I'm not sure if it's the normal one or not.
I didn't even know I had my Facebook page connected there. I'll have to look.
Okay, I'll have to look again. Maybe I'm just blowing smoke. Maybe it's not Facebook. Maybe it's Instagram.
Oh, no, LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, yeah.
LinkedIn. I got a notification for that and for Twitter, but I don't remember seeing anything for Facebook. So
okay, maybe it's Instagram, or maybe I'm thinking of something else. I don't know.
Okay.
You just got me all flustered thinking about the dog. That's all you have to do if you want to distract me. It's like a shiny object. All you have to do is say dog, and I'm off and running.
So that's I'm I need to, speaking of that, I need to post a link for the Malinois Foundation on these
Mhm.
different social media outlets. And
Yeah, it sounds like a great organization, and I'd like to be able to help promote it and support it however I can.
oh,
And,
that'd
so
be
the
great.
listeners know, a lot of my listeners are dog people too. So,
Yeah, it's the two things that really need to be told about it is two reasons. They're both very important. They're all donation based.
hmm
So whether a breeder donates a puppy to them or they have to buy it, it comes from outside donations.
right.
Everything's paid for by donations. So
hmm
any, if they can get some corporate sponsors, like in Utah where they're from, there's a
hmm
big car dealership that's a corporate sponsor of theirs
hmm
that, they helped place dogs with veterans is what they've been doing.
hmm
They can use all the sponsorships they can get,
hmm
and so they can get more of these wonderful animals placed with
So,
people who need them.
do the dogs go all over the country, or are they located? Do they have like, are they located in different states? Do they have branches everywhere? Yeah, I'm
Like
just a little
the
curious.
trainers, the people that do the training, they've got, if I think it's dogtrainingelite.com.
hmm
I think that's it, is for their training programs. And they
Okay.
have this in several states. Several
Okay.
states. They have franchises there.
Okay. Okay. Good. That's kind of what I wondered.
And then also the gentleman who's retired canine officer,
hmm
he told me he has 15 dogs that he would donate to them if they meet their criteria, because they don't meet what he needs for
Right.
law enforcement. So
Yeah.
after 2 days becoming a spokesperson for him, I contacted us, hey, could you use 15 dogs? Yeah. I'm like,
I'll bet they were so
oh,
happy.
okay, I'm earning my keep.
Right. Exactly. It's like, oh yeah, this guy's definitely, stepping up to the plate. That's pretty funny.
So I uh there I think he said of all those 15, I think the oldest is like 2 or 3 years old. So I don't know if they take them that old or not. So I'll have to see. I'm excited to find out what happens.
Yeah. I'll bet they do. I mean, you can train a dog at any age.
Yeah. Yeah. So
You just don't want to get an older dog, and, especially if it's a emotional support dog, or not
uh,
emotional support service dog, you want
right.
to make sure that you get several years with them. It would be
Yeah.
terribly cruel to give somebody an
Oh
older
yeah,
dog.
absolutely. Absolutely. So it's yeah, I'm excited about it. I'm
That's
really
wonderful.
to
That's wonderful.
you know all this good that's coming. I
hmm
I just told myself, for years and years and years, I've been trying to find a topic that I can be passionate about,
hmm
but I still haven't found it. But it found me.
Yeah, it certainly has. Not in a way that you would have ever wanted, but it did
No,
find you. And you
no.
have your message is, and I hope I have this correctly, it's you are not alone and feel the love. So you're wanting to just educate young people, teenagers who might be having difficulty thinking, having suicidal thoughts, to be able to reach out to anyone for help,
Well, and now
anything.
anywhere in the United States now, it's so simple. There used to be a
Mhm.
toll-free number that people could call if they felt they were in crisis, but now it's so easy.
Mhm.
That number has been shortened into the crisis hotline
Mhm.
988. All
Mhm.
somebody has to do is text or call 988, and people are there 24/7,
Mhm.
be there for you and to give you support and tell you. And if I haven't said that number, it's 988. And
Mhm.
what I found though too is that of younger people anyway, it's not the ones that you might think
Right.
that are ending them lives. It's not the the kids that are, doing drugs and hanging out on the street corners or anything like that. It's the good students, the
Mm-hmm.
athletes, that they just learn from an early age. You got to do it. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not told how much work it takes and how much failure can be in their life beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, Michael Jordan, and I've
Mm-hmm.
got this in part of my PowerPoint presentation. Michael Jordan says to succeed will take so many failures. He says failure is the key to success.
Right.
He's missed 9,000 free throws.
Mm-hmm.
And how many games that he was expected to take the winning shot and didn't, and
Mm-hmm.
on and on and on. And these kids, they hear, oh, you can do it. We know you can do it, but they don't hear, this is the work that it takes. You are
Right.
going to face failures in your life, but don't let that hold you back.
Mm-hmm.
Or, kids in a home where they just don't feel the love.
Mm-hmm.
And I always think, if I grew up in a home where I didn't feel loved, I know what that's like. And in today's environment, especially, there's so much hate, there's
Oh.
so much negativity that people just think there's no longer any hope or any love in
Mm-hmm.
the world. But
Mm-hmm.
if somebody's facing the, I took a course, it's a QRM Institute
Mm-hmm.
or QPR Institute.
Mm-hmm.
Question, persuade, refer. Question
Mm-hmm.
somebody if they're having suicidal thoughts. Say, you're not thinking about suicide, are you? Say,
Mm-hmm.
are you are you going to kill yourself? Do you have a plan?
Mm-hmm.
There's a myth that says that if you talk to somebody about suicide, it'll make them want to do it more. No, that's not the fact. That is not the case. You have to point blank ask them questions like, have you ever thought that you just don't want to wake up in the morning, but you'd
Right.
rather die in your sleep? Are you having thoughts about ending your own life? Do you want to harm yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Get them to open up and then just listen.
Mm-hmm.
Just listen. Let them know that somebody's listening to them.
Mm-hmm.
And then persuade them to get help
Mm-hmm.
and referring them to someone who can give them the help they need. And the best way is to take them to that appointment, take them
Mm-hmm.
to someone. But if somebody doesn't have anybody who's going to ask them things like that, and they really want to find out if there's hope or love in the world, don't go down to your friends like, oh yeah, man, that's a bummer. Yeah, yeah. I could see where you want to do that too. I probably would. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. But it's forget, that's not support. You know, if nothing else, go down the street, go into the church, go into a church, a synagogue,
Mm-hmm.
a mosque where there's leaders there who actually know what love means.
Mm-hmm.
Find a youth center with
Mm-hmm.
adults who are running the youth center that are really trying to help young people get through life.
Mm-hmm.
Find that love. Listen to that love. Let it take hold of you and just understand that love and hope is still alive in this world. And if nothing else, listen to my voice. I love you, for crying out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't, just don't give up. Don't give up.
Well, not only that, to see the amount of pain that that causes families, something that you live with for the rest of your life. And I think especially young people don't realize, teenagers, they don't realize, that there is hope, that there is love, that they can talk to people. I think that they just get so overwhelmed. And I don't know why. It seems like it's a bigger problem now in society than it ever has been. But I think that they get so overwhelmed that they don't even know how to dial those numbers 988, or they
Yeah.
don't know how to talk to an adult because the adult might judge them, or you know I don't know, do something terrible. I just think they don't, their brains aren't mature enough to really
Yeah.
even be able to
I,
see
absolutely.
what they're doing.
Absolutely. It's, there, so many younger people are terrified to talk to their parents because they think, oh, they're going to kill me. I got an F.
Yeah.
They're going to kill me. And so they're in crisis mode all of a sudden over a grade.
Right.
And that's nothing. That's nothing to end your life about. There's
Right.
one thing that people who succeed in suicide, people who have attempted, but then did not succeed, or people who have actually considered suicide and had plans or just had thought about it, they all have one thing in common. And that's they feel there is no hope for their life. There's no hope for whatever situation that has them in that place, whether it be a failed grade or, a breakup with out of a relationship. They just feel that there's no hope beyond that. And that's what causes it. And then the numbers are absolutely staggering about with every suicide attempt let me see if I can find this. It's just staggering. I don't know if I can find it.
Well, I think we all watch the news to more or less, but we all know when we hear.
Well, not just the
it's like an
numbers of
epidemic.
suicides, but for each number of suicides, there's 4 ER visits for every suicide attempt from, different people. If one person commits suicide with that suicide, there's 4 other people every day in the United States, there's 135 suicides.
Wow.
Then if you multiply that by 4, that's how many ER visits or admissions to the hospital there is. And then if you multiply 135 times, I think it's 8, that's how many ER visits in that day. And then I can't remember the number. It's something like 20 or 30 some people for every suicide out of that 135 each day. There's like 20 or 30 some people who are seriously considering suicide. And those numbers are just the ones that we know of. Because there's some deaths that, are labeled something else. Like one of the top causes of death of age group from 12 to 34 is poisoning. Well, how do we know that some of those aren't suicides?
Right.
Yeah. So it's just, and of that 135 each day in the United States alone, in the United States alone, 135 per day, 22 of those are veterans. I had a discussion yesterday with a Navy vet, and he brought that up, and he was telling me, says, and then if you take that 22 each day and multiply it for a whole week, that's an entire submarine crew.
Jeez.
So every week, the Navy loses veterans, or the Navy loses people to the tune of an entire submarine crew each week. Then he went on to say, now, if one of our submarines was sank in the ocean and the crew all perished, that'd be front page news.
Yes, it would.
But it takes that $1 billion machinery to get it to make the news, because you don't hear about all those who end their own life. Or let's take it over to aviators, naval aviators, Air Force, whatever. Let's say an Air Force pilot or a naval aviator loses control of their airplane and they hit the ejection seat. They're going to hear about it. If the pilot lives, they'll say, oh yeah, pilot lived. Now, if 6 months, a year later, whatever, that pilot takes his or her own life, you're not going to hear about it. But when they lost that piece of machinery, well, we sure heard about it.
Right. Right. Wow.
That's just so sad.
It's just got to change. It has just got to change. So I really have to give you a lot of credit for having the courage, to step up and speak on this subject and to tell us about Evangelina. I mean, what a lovely young lady. And, I'm just so sorry that that happened. And I don't know, it just, we need to change the conversation around suicide, especially, and suicide awareness, especially with teenagers.
It's not a taboo subject. It should not be.
No.
There's too much stigma around it. That's one
Yeah.
of the reasons that so many people are dying.
Yeah. Wow. Well, Colin, thank you so much for being on the show. I've just really enjoyed talking to you, and I really have enjoyed having the opportunity to get to know your little granddaughter.
Thank you.
Just what a sweetheart, just a, darling little girl. And I'm so,
You mentioned the pain a little bit ago. Did you see the video that I made shortly
I
after?
did. I did.
My wife cannot listen to that.
I'm sure she can't.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I do want to let the listeners know, go to Colin's website, because you'll see the video of Lena dancing. You'll see the video of Colin. Was it just a few days after she died, or was it right after you found out
It
she
was
passed away?
within minutes.
Within minutes of the pain that people go through. And I really believe that, I think Colin is the most courageous person I have ever met, to
I
be
don't know
able
about
to speak about it so openly and so honestly and share his story with us, that to prevent other people to experience this incredible pain and loss. It is preventable. We just need to, we need to all work together. We need to share the stories. We need to be able to watch over the kids and make them understand that they are not alone, that there is help for them. There's hope. They have their entire lives ahead of them.
There's actually two websites that are mirror each other.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was looking for it, first it started with Stop Teen Suicide.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just teens, so it's Stop Suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was trying to create the URL, I said stopsuicide.com, taken. Stopteensuicide.com, taken. Kept going on and on. And then finally a drop down box went through all these extensions. And then there was one for both of them that just stood out.
Mm-hmm.
.life.
Oh.
So it's stopteensuicide.life or stopsuicide.life.
And that's your website.
That's
Yeah.
the one for this battle.
For that battle. And one of the things I really loved about the site is the way that you were describing the predator.
Yeah. The essay about the predator that lurks in the night or the shadows, or however I worded that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I would highly recommend the listeners to go to your website and check that out. It's very powerful.
Thank you.
Is there any last thing that you would like to leave the audience with to think about? I know they're going to be thinking about this episode for a long time. So job well done.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I think the biggest thing to say is that, I kind of touched on a little bit, is no matter what life throws at you, no matter how dark it may seem, no matter how horrible you may feel, it's going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to get better. It will. It can, and it will get better. It may not be easy, but fight the good fight. Be strong and come out on the other side. Real quick analogy. When I was, starting to build my hours as a low time pilot, I just got my flight instructor rating. I was working in Springfield, Missouri, and there's a gentleman there who flew a small twin engine airplane for a company, and he had landed, was coming into Springfield. Weather was too low. He had to divert to somewhere in Arkansas and got a rental car to drive back home. And in Springfield, it had been solid overcast for 2 or 3 weeks. Just dreary and blah, 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 blah. Nobody was flying. The weather's too low except for airlines and whatever, And he invited me to drive down. Weather got up enough. He invited me to drive down to Arkansas with him and fly this airplane back. And he's in the left seat. And he's an FAA designated pilot examiner. He's who I sent all my students to do their FAA check rides. And I did not have much instrument time at all at this point. But we took off out of this airport in Arkansas. It had been solid overcast for 2 weeks. And we popped out at our cruising altitude of 5,000 feet, right out on top of the clouds. And guess what I saw?
The sun?
The sunshine. That sun is always shining, even when you can't see it. So even in your darkest moments, in the cloudiest of days, the sun, that sun is still up there. Reach for it.
Excellent. Wonderful words of wisdom. And thanks again, Collin. And once again, I'm so, so sorry for your loss, and lots of love to you and your wife, your entire family.
Thank you so much.
And everybody, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. I know this is a tough subject, but it's a really serious problem, and we have got to get a grip, a handle on this, and, save our children from killing themselves. It's just a terrible pandemic. And like Collin said, the predator is always lurking. We can't see it. So let's start opening our eyes and start looking for that predator and making them go away. And make sure you do check out Collin's website, check out his podcast, check out the Malinois Foundation. I'm going to have, of course, all of the links are going to be in the show notes. So you have no excuse that you can't find them. You can always find Collin. Thanks again for listening. And that is the way of the FemiNinja.